have a real ghost story that happened to me when I was a younger child. It's quite long as it took place just over 2 years ago, and this is the reason I wholeheartedly believe in the paranormal, and these events extremely distressed me as a child, to the point where I dreaded going to bed. A house I used to live in, after living there for a while, my whole family began noticing strange happenings. Initially, my 18-month-old brother started standing in his cot at night and talking to people that weren't there. Then shortly after, furniture, for example, our 8-foot-tall bookshelf began moving around during the night. The aforementioned bookshelf moving halfway across my room, this being an old Victorian house, so the rooms are huge. Then I personally began to experience things. For example, at nights, me and my family would sit down to watch TV, and I would look into the hall and see shadows walking in the hall. This scared the shit out of me, especially from a young age. So I shut the door whenever I was at the living room at night. My dad caught on to this. This will become important later on in my life. I also began to awake at nights between midnight and 3 in the morning and hear noises in my hallway. I initially thought this was my parents getting up for the toilet or something, so I turned the light on to check, only to see an empty hallway. But when I went back to bed, the noises stopped. So when this continued, I would walk over to my bedroom door, open it, shut my eyes, and reach around the door to turn the light on, and they would stop. But then after a while, these events stopped, which made me greatly happy as I was no longer scared to go to bed. About 3 years later, I sparked an interest in the paranormal, and during a discussion about this, my dad brought up the house and asked if I had experienced anything strange there, to which I replied basically what I have just explained. My dad went on to say he noticed how distressed I got at night, and went on to explain that he once got up to the toilet and felt someone poking his back. Initially, he thought it was me or one of my siblings, but there was no one there, and he also woke up to a young girl standing in his room, who then abruptly disappeared, along with similar experiences to me. And after a while of this, he was approached by a psychic who showed up to our house. He already knew this person. Upon entering the house, she asked if we had seen anything strange in the house, and explained that there was a ghost of a young family member in my house. I would rather not disclose the details of who. It's quite distressing for my family. However, the haunting was not malevolent. She then came back to get rid of the spirit, after which the event stopped. I knew none of this until years after the event. It was an incredibly strange house, but we've moved now. However, I will never forget what happened. As I said, I now wholeheartedly believe in the paranormal. So, I've commented about this one before, but still, I just wanted to discuss it. I haven't found anyone who I could talk to about it, and this one has just haunted me ever since it's happened. At the beginning of last year, my 2 younger siblings, our 2 pet dogs, and I had to stay with our grandparents until the summer. Our parents had found new jobs and a new house up north that would allow our father to be home more often, as his previous job had him on the road through the week. However, they wanted us to finish up the school year, so they let us stay with our grandparents who lived in the same town. During the part of the day that we weren't at school, we'd have to walk the dogs to keep them from making messes in the basement. This included going out at night, and I hated going out at night. Woods surrounded all sides of the property except where the road ran through, and sloping hills on either side of the house. On the other side of the road was my grandfather's old barn, which looked eerie in the beam of a flashlight. To make matters worse, there were always reports of bears or coyotes that roamed the forest, and you could never be sure where they'd show up next. But what happened was perhaps scarier than any bear or coyote. So it was around 9 or 10 p.m. on a freezing winter night when we took the dogs out for one last walk for the night before turning in. My little sister was chosen to go with me this time, and at first, things were normal. However, while sweeping around with my flashlight, I just barely caught a chilling sight in the beam. Shining it across the road towards the barn, I swept it to the left, and standing next to the fence in the front of the barn, I saw a man. But he wasn't normal. He wore a brown suit like those ones that were so popular several years back, and stood facing directly at me. He looked to be middle-aged with deep black shining hair and grayish white sideburns, skin that looks sort of tanned, and black voids for eyes. In fact, the more I think about it, he looked like a younger version of my grandfather. But don't get the wrong idea, my grandfather was still alive and, well, relaxing inside at the time. I shined my light back and he was gone. As not to scare my sister, I urged her back inside, wondering what the heck I saw. Sometime later, it could have been that night or later that week, since I forgot the time. I just laid in my bed, trying to go to sleep. At this point, the phantom had escaped my mind. However, at one point after everyone had turned in, I felt something, as if someone just entered my room. I looked up towards the doorway, and standing there was a figure. It looked to be the same height and physique as my grandfather. Thinking that he was just pulling my leg, I got up out of bed and decided to just approach him, trying to ruin his little scheme of scaring me. However, as I approached, the figure just disappeared. Confused, I flipped on the light and peered into the small hall. With no signs that anyone was there, I questioned my family, who had been asleep at that point. I knew it couldn't have been anyone that broke in. Nothing was missing or smashed, and the dogs would have lost it. Eventually, I got to sleep, and for a while, nothing else happened. Now, I'm not sure if this event is connected, as if I'm haunted by some demon who torments me in the form of my grandfather, or if this is a completely disconnected event. But later on that year, we finally moved up north with our parents. One night of the first week, I stayed up late. It was summer, and there was nothing in the agenda for tomorrow. So I decided, why not? See, earlier that day, we cleaned the new house, as it was due for a little touch-up. I was given the task of cleaning up the bedroom I shared with my brother. There was a strange triangular pattern in the carpet that stretched across the entire room, as if there was something there that had several triangular shapes on it. Seriously, what could do something like that? I paid no mind to it, and just went about doing my cleaning. Anyhow, later after taking a shower, I decided to go watch TV in the family room adjacent to my bedroom. However, before I could, I heard two hinges creak towards that direction. My first thought was literally, oh no, this is not a thing, because I was certain it was just freaking me out in the new house. And I knew that I was the last person in that room, and I knew that I had closed that door. So I walked down the small hall that connects the living room to the rest of the house and took a look in. And sure enough, the door is wide open. So I took my 3DS and played some calming music to maintain my sanity, and just curled up in my sister's bedroom with the light on, before eventually drifting off to sleep. It's been a bit over a year since that's happened. We're in the same house, and nothing else happened anywhere else I've been, and no one else in my family has seen anything strange. My grandfather's fine, despite that creepy phantom that looked like him. But I still can't shake the feeling that something's wrong when I'm in that room. I've slowly shaken down that feeling, but I still feel extremely uneasy, even if I'm in there with someone else. This is something I never thought I'd share. Well, I was at home laying in bed scrolling through Facebook. I usually like to have all the lights off in my room, so it was really dark, except for the bit of moonlight coming in through my window. So I'm laying there, and I hear in the next room things being thrown and dragged around, and I immediately think it's a burglar or something, so I get a knife and slowly walk into the room. To my surprise, there was nothing moved, and I cannot stop thinking about it. I go back to my room and lay down again and continue scrolling through my news feed. About 30 minutes goes by, and in the corner of my eyes coming up from the window pane, on the bottom, a dark shadow is slowly rising from the darkness below. Its silhouette exposes a small girl's shape. As it continues to rise while it's moving, I never turn my head. I only see it in my peripheral vision, because I honestly wasn't in the mood to see a scary-ass ghost in my face. So I grab my balls and look and point my phone at it. But it disappears, and the shape kinda blends into the wall, and I feel like since it was in my peripheral vision, my mind was playing tricks on me, so I try to forget the image. The same night, a couple hours later, I wake up to use the restroom, and it's still pitch black in my room. And I pick my head up from my pillow, and immediately, I hear a low guttural growling sound coming from the restroom just feet away from my bed. I have a restroom in my bedroom. I feel my spine shorten in pure fear. I grab my phone and turn on the flashlight, and slowly start from the ground and point the light higher. I reveal a string of images that will forever be engraved into my mind, even after death. I see the long skinny legs as I go higher. I shine the light on its cut gutted torso. The skin is gray, and this was no human. It looked alien/demon-like. And I pointed the light at its face. It took steps towards me, growling in one of the lowest tones I've ever heard. I back up and hit the wall and had nowhere to go. I shat bricks. It had gone within a step of me. And suddenly, light comes in through my door, and my mother asks if everything was alright. It faded right before my eyes. I still feel this creature weakening me. It's been years now, and I still feel it. It's become more personal in time, yet no one knows the suffering inside.